Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today at our Study Different Majors in the United States series. Today, we will focus on study geography in the US. My name is Hani, and I am the Education USA advisor in the Czech Republic. And today, I have a special guest, Eilish, who is a Fulbright grantee and our current English teaching assistant in Vítkov. Hi, Eilish. Thank you for joining us and introducing geography to us.
Hi, Hani. Thank you for the introduction. I'll go ahead and get started with everything. So I studied geography as a minor, actually, to my in addition to my major. But I decided to talk about it because I think it's a really good thing to like do alongside another study. So I think this kind of thing would be really helpful for like different kind of fields. If you don't know what to do, this might be something nice to study or like tack on to whatever you would like to study. And I'll get into why. So yes, I studied geography I minored in GIS, which is Geographic Information Science, at the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. So in the southeastern United States. And I'll get into a little bit about what geographic information sciences actually is. And like I said, my major was something else, but after taking a few courses, both in my major and kind of in the geography department, I thought that adding GIS as a minor would be a really good addition to what I wanted to do. And so let's get into it. Okay, so when I tell people I studied geography or minored in geography, a lot of people just immediately think of maps and capitals and mountains and memorizing locations of places. And geography is a lot more than that. And so my university and geography in general, there are three kind of main branches that you can get into. And so that is human geography, geographic information sciences, which is what my minor was, and then physical geography and sustainability. So if you're interested in the environment or climate change or kind of like mountains, how they were formed, weather, this kind of thing, that would be this third bullet point. The second bullet point is what I studied. And again, I'll get into that later. And then human geography is kind of a combination of like economics, geography, sociology. So geography is really it can be a very wide field of study. And so that's why I say that it can be paired really nicely with other kinds of majors and stuff.
And
So
so you said you studied it as a minor. Can geography be studied as a major?
yes, of course it can be studied as a major. I hope that wasn't confusing. But yeah, so I had a lot of friends in my classes and their primary subject was geography. And all of their classes kind of encompassed all three of these bullet points, whereas my minor focused mainly on the second bullet point. But yes, you can certainly study geography as your primary major or subject as well.
And what was your major, Eilish?
So my major here was environmental economics.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And so obviously like when you're studying economics and studying environmental economics specifically, that's very related to geography as well. And kind of both this human geography and geographic information science, like it's all very tied together. I realized, and so I kind of put together this very like unique experience at university because I had a major and then I had a minor. And that's like the good thing about studying in the United States is you can have a major and then have a minor that seems like very different, but it can still really help your studies and like help you kind of focus in on like what exactly you want to study and what you want your university experience to be. And so I had this major to begin with. Environmental economics. And then after taking classes for my major, I kind of stumbled upon geographic information science. And in my second year of university, I added it on as a minor because in American schools, there's a lot of freedom to, oh, I took this class and I really like it. Like, I would like to have a double major, which is where you have two primary subjects. Or like, I really like it, but maybe I'll just add it as a minor. So then you still keep your primary major and your minor. And that's one of the really good things about going to school in the United States is there's a lot of freedom to change your mind after you get a couple classes in about what you're even studying. Like it's very common to change your major in the United States. So that is what I did. I did not start out at university like studying this, but I kind of just stumbled upon it after taking a couple of classes. So
that's really cool. So guys who are watching, major in Czech would be obor and minor would be pod obor. So you can kind of study it in the Czech Republic, but you have to decide very early on, whereas in the States, as Eilish just described, you can just pick it up, later if you decide that your major is awesome, but you still like to kind of develop in different direction. That's what minor is for. And Eilish, is it visible on your diploma that you had a major and your minor, that you studied both kind of?
Yes. So it goes on your resume. It goes on your resume, it goes on your diploma, like everything. Like if you had two, like I know people that had two majors and two minors, or like one major and like three minors or whatever. Like all of those things, you do get like the proper certification degree. And depending on how much you're willing to work, you can choose to have more than one major, more than one minor. That would obviously just be extra coursework. And so I had one major and one minor, but of course you can also just have one major, but it's very common for people to have a major, two majors, or like it's very common for people to kind of mix things together. And I think that allows you to create a university experience where you're trying lots of different classes and really get to study specifically what you want to study.
Awesome.
So yes, so let's talk a little bit more about these bullet points. So the first thing we will talk about is physical geography and sustainability. I think this is what maybe a lot of people think about when they think of geography also, is kind of like getting out, in the earth, in our geography that we have. And so this was a very, like the classes that I took kind of with physical geography were a lot more technical. So there was a lot of lab work, a lot of like field work, which is where you go outside and maybe you take a sample of the water, or you take a sample of the soil, or the air, or something like this. And with that, these fit into like other specific types of geography, maybe I would say. So meteorology, if you're interested in studying the weather, geography is where you would start for that. Soil sciences, water quality, natural resources. So if you're kind of interested in the technical side of environmental science, geography is also a good place to start because it's on this like smaller level. And then also you will have classes on a bigger level where you're studying soil samples, but you're also studying like the world geography as a whole, and the weather and different countries and this kind of thing. So if you're interested in the environment or lab work or anything like this, geography is a good place to start. So that's kind of one focus of geography. And then another focus, and I didn't take as many classes in this field because that wasn't my focus, but a lot of people I knew did kind of focus on this human geography type of thing, which is where it looks at the relationship between the environment and people. And so this has a lot to do with history, politics, sociology, economics, but you're focusing on this like geographic lens. So for example, like there might be a class on how geography, like the literal mountains of Europe, affected like European history and war, and like how different people were separated or fought or whatever over natural resources like mountains and rivers and this kind of thing. So that's human geography. And again, like you can see how geography is related to a lot of different topics. So if you're interested in these topics, history, politics, sociology, economics, geography is something, it adds like another context to those studies. So And then finally, we will get into GIS, and this is my actual major, or sorry, this is my minor, what I specifically focused on. So GIS is a computer program that takes data, any kind of data at all, and kind of displays it on a geographic level to where like maybe you're taking data on, I don't know, income in the Czech Republic. And you take income and you take income numbers and put it on a map, and you can see, oh, like maybe people in Prague have higher incomes than people in Ostrava or something like that. And you're seeing this information, but on a map. So that would just be like one example. And everyone has seen GIS maps before, probably just without realizing it is GIS. And so this is a computer program. So if you're interested also in kind of like computer science, engineering, data, GIS is also a really good, a good minor to add. Like I keep saying, it was my minor. So it's kind of like a tool almost that will strengthen a lot of different things you might want to study. So I said it's very good to pair with other disciplines like civil engineering, business, economics, environmental studies, computer science. And this is a very versatile thing to study because you can, like, any discipline that has data, you can take that data and somehow use it with geographic information science.
For sure. And I think that many Czech students who are actually watching this came across geographic information science because they're always comparing how much it's going to cost in the United States. And there's this beautiful website called Numbeo, where you can just type in where you come from in the Czech Republic. For instance, you would type in Vítkov. And then, if they're applying to, I don't know, University of San Francisco, and it will compare how much rent is, how much milk costs, and so forth. So 2 different geographic locations, and it will just compare it all together. So I think that this is very important for all the international students to be able to compare, to see the differences and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great point, especially because you guys will be Czech students in a new country. This kind of field, like, you would constantly be comparing, like, oh, like, this is my project that I have to do for my GIS class, but I'm going to do it on the Czech Republic because this is where I'm from, and this kind of thing. So there's also even like a lot of freedom with this major because, like, yeah, you can choose, like, where do you want to make this comparison, or where do you want to, like, study income or whatever. And you can, like, even learn a lot more about the Czech Republic and maybe even differences in the Czech Republic and the United States. Yeah, this major would be great for that also. So that's a good point. So let's see what else I have. Oh, so here are some kind of concrete examples from my specific university. You guys are probably applying to other places as well. But my university, it's a state university. But I think other universities that have this major would have similar courses. So I just included them in case you're like, oh, I'm hearing Eilish talk about geography and what it is, but I still don't know quite, like, what that means in terms of, like, what will I be studying in the classroom. So like I said, I had these 3 kind of branches of geography. And so I went to my university website and looked at what kind of classes do they actually offer. And so for physical geography, you have meteorology, weather, trees, like, like these very technical water resources, plant geography, terrain analysis, those very physical concepts, or those very technical concepts. And then human geography, you can see here, there's a lot of culture, economics, different, like, societies, culture, urban geography, social geography, transportation, the global economy. So you can see, like, this is more of like a socio-economic history focus of geography. And then we have a more technical, what I did, this kind of data science. So GIS programming, that would be very technical with computers, field methods with GPS. So this is like physical, like maps on your phone that you can go into and like type in, oh, I want to get here, how can I get there? And then yes, like all of these more technical spatial data management, project management, GIS in the community, GIS for terrain analysis. This is like more technical in terms of more things like on the computer, working with data, looking at things like that. So any questions, Hani, with this slide?
I mean, I really like all three of them. I'm just wondering, like, did you do anything prior to entering university or prior to deciding for this minor to kind of boost your chances of succeeding? Like, did you take any AP classes in, I don't know, programming? Because everything looks very like tied together with other minors or majors or, other courses. So did you do anything extra to be able to succeed?
So my college, my high school, I was from it's actually a very similar place to VCOV. I was from a very small town, and I actually did not have access to much AP classes or like these kind of like extra whatever because I was just like very rural. Like I was a very rural student. So I think maybe subconsciously I was always aware of like my place in the world. Like I know I'm very far from a city. I know I'm very far from these other kind of opportunities. And so I think because of that, I was always interested in like maps and my location in the world. And so, but that would be kind of more of a more personal draw to this major of like why I found it so interesting and why I found maps so interesting because I knew there was such a big difference between like rural and urban. And maybe for Czech students, that would be similar to like, for example, like you guys are Czech students and you're about to go to, or you are about to apply to university in America. And so there's this idea of kind of like location and how does that affect your identity and this kind of thing. And so if Czech high school students were interested in studying geography, I think that would be something to focus on in maybe a college application essay of like, oh, I want to study geography and like I'm from the Czech Republic and I'm interested in going to school in America and like maybe talking about those geographical differences or like how that affects life in the Czech Republic versus life in America. So that was something I wrote about in my college application essay. But in terms of actual classes, I think that if a Czech high school student had experience in kind of this computer type of stuff or like had a really particular interest in history or economics and had done something for that, maybe that would help their application as well. But like I said, I added this in my second year of university. So I didn't really have geography. When I was applying to university, I did not really have like, oh, geography on my mind is something that I wanted to study. It was something that I came into later. And so I think that's important for Czech students to know is that like you can apply for university in one major, but when you get there, maybe you start taking classes in that major and you don't really like it very much. There is a lot of freedom in the United States college system to change your major once you arrive at that university. So I hope that answers your question, Hani.
Sure. Yeah, that's amazing. Do you somewhat remember your application process to your university? Like, well, what is the acceptance rate? So if students are interested, because now they know what, like a little piece that they could study, so it might feel a little familiar. Can you just like describe it briefly? What was it felt like?
Yeah, so when I was applying to universities, I mainly applied to universities close to my hometown, so there in Tennessee or maybe other places in the South. But my primary objective when I was applying to university was getting scholarships. And so in the American college application process, you kind of have to have a lot more beyond just like academic aspects to your application. So I also was very involved in my high school soccer team. I was a captain for the soccer team. I also volunteered at a nursing home and this kind of thing. And so I think in the American college application process, people are looking for like very like well-rounded students to prove like, yes, you are really smart and like you've gotten good grades so far, but also like you can balance like being on a sport team and like doing volunteer work. I think volunteer work is something that's really big in the American like it's something American colleges really look at because I think they see a person who like cares about their community and this kind of thing. So if you guys are involved in anything in your community, maybe you do volunteer work or you do something on the weekend that's like part of the community, or you help or you have a job or something, I think like really emphasizing like you are also a person outside of like your academics. And so that's what I talked about a lot. It was like, yes, like sure, on paper I have these grades, but I also volunteered at the nursing home and I also was on my soccer team, and all of these things like tie the application together, I guess.
Amazing. And that's something that Czech students don't realize, that it's not only about the grades from high school, that really the application to the United States is, they want to get to know you, and they want to read your essay, and they want to know your story. So being engaged in extracurricular activities is super important. Volunteering, which is not that common in the Czech Republic, is super important. So thank you for saying that. I am really excited to, so that the students hear it from someone else than me. I'm not really making this up, like I'm not forcing you to volunteer for nothing. So this is definitely going to help you. And so, Eilish, tell me what you can do with a degree or a minor from geography.
Yes, so I have, oh, okay, sorry. I do have this on my last slide. Would
Okay,
you like
that's
me
fine.
to?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go through just a little bit of what I have done with my GIS, just
Okay.
so with my GIS minor, just so I can show kind of like what that is, because I know when I first got into it, I still was like, I don't really know what this is.
Yeah.
So for example, this was a project I did for actually an elementary school in my university town, and they had a lot of students from all across the city, but they didn't have the bus routes actually put onto a map showing students like how they could ride different buses. And so this was a project where my class partnered with the school, and they gave us the addresses of the school and the bus routes, and then we like programmed them into the computer and then made like this kind of like output to visualize, hey, like here are the bus stops, here are the different routes, route 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this was something that they printed out and gave to their school. So this is kind of maybe a visualization part of GIS, is like taking information and putting it on a map so that people can understand it. This was another project. It's a little blurry, but this is obesity rates in the state of Illinois. And so like this, for example, would be data that's maybe for someone who's interested in like public health, or maybe like global nutrition, or some sort of like socioeconomic field. And it's taking that kind of data and putting it onto a map like this to be like, okay, like these counties have really high rates, or these counties have really low rates. Like, why is that? And so then this was actually my senior thesis. And there's a lot of maps here, but basically I looked at how well does Knoxville, which was my university town, how well does Knoxville have access to public transit, so like buses and this kind of thing. And then you can see how some parts of the city have really high access with the buses, and then some parts of the city have really low access. And so my point is that like that's something that's like super specific sort of, but like still this major, like if you're interested in like buses, which is super specific, or you're interested in like public health, which is more general, or you're just like you're working for a government or you're working for a school and they need a map of something. This just goes to show like how versatile this field is, like anything that can be put on a map. So now, to answer your question, Hani, what can you do with a degree in geography? So you can be an urban planner, kind of looking at like where should buildings go in relation to the school, the river, whatever. Environmental scientists, that one's pretty obvious. I think that's what most people think of when they think of geography, is like soil, weather, those physical things. You can be a researcher over some sort of topic that might interest you in geography. A meteorologist, of course, someone who studies the weather. If you're interested in data, of course, GIS, what I just talked about, this is a very growing field with data. And then you could be a cartographer, which is someone who makes maps, also pretty self-explanatory. And then something to do with natural resources. So for example, like a park ranger or maybe like a game warden or something like this. So
can you be a teacher as well?
Yes, of course you can be a teacher. Yeah, that would have been great to add. But yeah, like you definitely can be a teacher, a professor. You could be someone who's a professor and a researcher at a university if this was something you wanted to do also. But yes, you can definitely be a teacher.
That's great. Do you teach geography in VTCOF right now, or is it just English?
So I teach English, but I try to, of course, like incorporate maps into some of my activities. So like, for example, if we're learning about important places in town, like the bank, the post office, the restaurant, I try to incorporate these kinds of maps into my activities. But we're definitely not getting into anything super technical like this in our English classes. So yes, but yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Eilish. You guys for watching. If you do have any questions, please send them to me. On that last slide, there is my email address. You can send it to advisor@fulbright.cz, and I'm happy to forward your questions to Eilish. You can also send me a PM on EducationUSA Czech social media. And I hope that this got you excited about studying geography, that it's not only maps, you can really dive into various majors, minors, and I'm sure that Eilish would be more than happy to answer any of your questions. So Eilish, thank you again for sharing your experience from university and your knowledge. And you guys, if you have questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.